welcome back. Today I'll be talking about the books I read during the UnderHypedReads Readathon. I got through my entire TBR, which was 5 books, and actually finished a couple days early and then reread another one, which I'll get into in a moment. So day 1 being a Saturday, which was great. I had a 3-day weekend, so I got an enormous jump on it, hence the reason I finished so early. I finished actually 3 books in the first day. And it was a total zombie-filled first day if you followed my vlogs throughout the Readathon. The first 2 books I read were from Hour of the Zombie, which is a new manga series. It's volume 1 and volume 2, and this is by Tsukasa Saimura. And I really enjoyed these a lot. First of all, the covers drew me in. I thought that the illustrations were just fantastic, both the front and the back, and within the books as well. The title, Hour of the Zombie, refers to the type of zombieism that takes place within this manga. We come across our main characters, which I will show you through here. And these mangas also have some really nice color pages right at the beginning. This is from volume 2, where you get a kind of a look at some of the characters. This is our main character, Akira. He has a crush on Kurumi, and Akira's best friend is Umezawa. Now, Kurumi, unfortunately, happens to have a crush on Umezawa, so that makes Akira kind of jealous a bit, and you get a little feel for that as the story goes. But as the story opens up, Kurumi comes running to Akira to say that Umezawa's in trouble. He seems to be going nuts. He's beating up on some students. And when Akira comes across him, it's a bloody mess. He's like beaten up like 3 or 4 guys. They're all on the floor. And Umezawa happens to be quite the boxer. The two have been training kind of together. And he says, gee, what the heck's going on? A little bit over the top here. And Umezawa tries to explain that it wasn't him that started it. These guys all went berserk. And it seems like something has been turning the students all of a sudden. Several students all over the place have just been going berserk, attacking other students. And Umezawa is simply protecting himself. And of course Akira doesn't believe this at first until suddenly one of them attacks Kurumi, and there's a big fight thing going on. And eventually what happens is both of his friends end up being bitten by these berserk students, and they kind of start to change. And it's like the zombie plague is sort of, instantly, once you're bit, you got it. And then a short while later, everyone seems to be back to normal. No one knows what's going on. Even people that had turned and started attacking have a bit of amnesia. They don't know what they've been doing for this past amount of time. And it comes to discover later on from a character, let me see if I can find his picture. His name is Ferrucci. This guy here, who happens to be a bit of a film buff. He happened to be filming while this whole outbreak was taking place. Through looking at these videotapes and stuff, he comes to discover that this outbreak seems to happen every hour, and then they switch back. So now we're basically following Akira and his friends and Ferrucci and a smaller group of people as they are struggling to try to sort of stay alive and figure out how this happened, how it started, and how they can stop it. Between the groups of students that have turned and those who haven't, it becomes sort of a battle between the two. But there are friends on both sides. Like Akira has 2 of his friends, and he's trying to protect them as well from other students that want to kill all those that are like that, because he knows they're still, his friends are still in there. They're trapped, and they can't help what's happening to them. That they're still human inside. It's just whether they can live with what they've done or survive from being killed themselves. But it's a really fascinating series. I'm curious to see how it's going to continue. It's got a lot of really good action scenes, and even when the close-ups of the zombies as they're turning and things. And what I like the best about it is the characters that we meet. I'm finding an instant liking to quite a few of them, except for there's at least one character who seems more concerned about his own life. Basically, he's the type that would trip you up so the zombies eat you so he can get away, kind of thing. But I found myself very intrigued about all the characters and really like rooting for them. And anytime you can like the characters in these kinds of books, that's what draws you in. You want to see, are they going to survive? It's like The Walking Dead and all those types. You become attached to those characters. So after I finished those 2, I moved on to another zombie book, which I gotta say, this is one of my favorite characters ever, which happened to be me in the book. Because when you read this book, Can You Survive the Zombie Apocalypse? You yourself are the main character. This is by Max Brallier. I hadn't read a Choose Your Own Adventure since I was a little kid, but I really enjoyed this one. Oh, by the way, I gave these 5 stars. I didn't see anything wrong with them. I totally enjoyed it. And the same here, I gave this one 5 stars too. I thought it was really intriguing. And it's kind of an adult version, like I said, of choose your own adventure. It says hours of bone-crunching zombie action with 100 paths and 50 endings to choose from. Now, I actually read this book twice during the readathon. I read it on day 1 and again on my last day, which I think was around day 6, about when I packed it in. And both times I managed to reach a satisfying ending. It wasn't, as I described it, a dead ending. I didn't die at the end of those two. I was basically waiting for help to arrive. Or I was at least, still breathing and not wounded or not bitten or anything like that at the end. Just now flipping through it, I kind of came across, just to see what some of the other endings were. And this one finds the main character wandering around Union Square, and they end up in a Barnes & Noble, which I thought was hilarious. What does this describe? It says, of course, there's you could find everything. You could set up your home base. For some odd reason, Barnes & Noble sells yoga mats. You stack 3 of those and make a half-decent bed. You make a pillow out of masking tape, a shitload of paper, towels from the bathroom. There's candles, a clock, picture frames. Yes, Barnes & Noble now sells all of this. And the best part was when he stumbles across a zombie book promotion called Undead Summer, where they're all various types of zombie books and things, and of particular use of the Zombie Survival Guidance and Zombie Combat Manual. Totally hilarious. Would have been nice to kind of reach that ending in my book, but I didn't. But I guess I survived both endings that I read, and who knows, maybe one time I'll read it again. But each time I tried to choose totally different paths, and it seems like if you're going to survive, you've got to be morally good, brave, and pretty smart. But if you're going to turn on somebody and look after yourself, you're probably not going to make it. There's your tip. Anyway, after that, day 2, I started my favorite, I think it was day 2. I may be off, but you can always watch the vlogs if you want. I picked up, the next one was My Favorite Fangs by Alan Goldsher. Of course, this is a twist on The Sound of Music. The author also did one, Paul is Undead, the British zombie invasion book. Thought it'd be something along the lines of Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. But overall, it was a bit disappointing. I mean, I liked the references that were there to The Sound of Music. I mean, you have Maria. In this case, though, she's an overly sexed vampire, which really got on my nerves. It was just too much of the sexual innuendos and references and things throughout the book that was really overplayed. She is living at the Abbey of the Dead, and Mother Zombie, as opposed to Mother Superior, is pretty much fed up because they don't know what to do with the problem of Maria. So a lot of these little song references and things like that do pop up, which I liked. I liked all those references to The Sound of Music and the way they were able to fit them in there. Describing Lisa as 16. Well, she's going on 17, Again, another song reference. But some of the funnier parts where they would make references to songs and someone would say, wrong musical. They'd call them out on it, like, you're in the wrong musical. There's other familiar things like the puppet scene and the gala contest at the end. There are references also to Hammerstein. Someone says, she mentions something that she has confidence in me, and he's like, isn't that grammatically incorrect? It should be confidence in myself. And she's like, bring it up with Hammerstein. Or a character that pops up and is like, well, I've got to go now, and, but when will I see you again? Oh, probably in the next coming chapter. So they were like, what's a chapter? So there's references to the fact that they're in books or referencing a plot. Some of those were pretty funny. And I like the interlude, too, where it's Dracula, Count Chocula, the Count from Sesame Street, and the guy from Twilight, whatever, kind of discussing what has happened so far in the book. That just came out of the blue. I wasn't expecting that, but it was quite humorous in that aspect of it. But overall, I just gave this one 3 stars. And then the last book I read during the UnderHypedReads was The House of Dead Maids by Claire B. Dunkel. This is a book that had been sitting on my shelves for quite some time. And that cover just drew me in, and love anything kind of horror or haunted or ghostly. And I was curious to see the connection to Wuthering Heights, and I'd only fairly recently read that one, so it was nice to have read that, of course, first before I got into this one. And this features an 11-year-old girl by the name of Tabby Ackroyd, who actually was a real person. She was the, the housemaid. She was a housekeeper to the Bronte family, and she became basically like a family member. The Bronte sisters and everything looked after her in her older age. But I guess when she was looking after the family, she used to tell sort of like dark, ghostly stories to the 3 girls, and maybe that developed their interest in writing. But she's a main character in this particular book, and she's living at Ma Hutton's knitting school. She's an orphan, never knew her father, and her mother died when she was quite young. So she's been living and working there, and this old maid dressed all in black by the name of Miss Winter shows up at the school looking for a young girl to become the new maid of Seldom House, and she brings Tabby Aykroyd to that house, and she's to look after. She's going to be house like what do you call it? Like the new nursemaid to a young boy that'll be brought to Seldom House. The current master is Master Jack Ketch, but the boy that's brought there is described as the new master, and he's a bit younger than Tabby, but he is a total brat. I hated his character throughout the entire book. He is the young boy that will come to be known as Heathcliff by the end of the story. But throughout the book, where he's just known as the new master, or she nicknames him himself. Oh, himself did this or whatever, but it's like she never quite knows his name, and he's kind of given a name by the end of it. There's also another character by the name of Mrs. Sexton. She's the housekeeper. It's a very dark, creepy kind of place. While she's there, she gets the sense that there is another young girl living there, but it turns out it is the ghost of the previous maid, one of several that was there before, and who actually previously came from the same school she did. So it has a really dark feel to it. It builds on that whole character of Heathcliff, and you see the development of that character throughout. And it definitely held my attention. It takes an interesting twist as the story progresses towards the back end of it, and I really enjoyed it. And overall, I gave this one 4 stars. So that's the amount of books. That's all the books I read during the UnderHypedReads Readathon. I really enjoyed them. I recommend all these except with the possible exception of this one. Totally enjoyable, and I'm looking forward to doing this again. Thank you guys for watching, and thank you for all your comments. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.